Good morning and afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. John Phillips. This is the inaugural podcast of Save My Piggies, a podcast dedicated to patients with peripheral arterial disease in an attempt to raise awareness. Our first guest is a patient of mine that I've had since I was looking back, 2015. Her name is Kim. She has quite a story to tell, I think, and has been through quite a bit with respect to her disease process. Kim is going to share a couple of things: the secret of not giving up when faced with an amputation, and how to stay motivated when all the odds are stacked against you, and finding some hope within the struggle. And then we're also going to talk about tobacco cessation and the fact that it's truly an addiction. So Kim, welcome to our first podcast. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for sharing. Be willing to share your story with us. So tell me a little bit about your journey through this disease process that we call peripheral arterial disease. I was looking back to when you and I first met. That was in 2015. And this was, I think, after you had already had the amputation on the right side. This is after you've had multiple procedures to, fix blockages in the leg. I think you'd had a bypass done at that time. Yep. You and I have known each other for 5.5 years now. It's been quite a journey. So I'm going to let you speak and just kind of share your journey with the listeners.
Yep. I met you, like you said, right after I had, shortly after I had my amputation. They'd done the first amputation on the right leg. And then I went from there to 2 weeks later, had to go higher up into the thigh area. So I'm AK now. So, and it's been a battle since then, but thanks to you, I can say I still have my left leg. You've done 2 different surgeries on it and saved it to keep them from amputating it. And I'm very grateful for that. It's been a long road. I mean, one battle after another, but I don't give up. I have to keep fighting. I've got 13 grandchildren and a wonderful husband and my kids, and I don't give up. So I don't want to give up, but it's been a long battle. I've got artificial arteries in the remains of my right side that they put in. I had aortic symptom bypass done twice prior to this, and I am now in stage 4 renal failure. So I'm battling that as well. So it's hard to describe what I've been through, and I don't know how to describe it. It's been
Sure.
It's been a journey. It's been a long journey for us. So
you can be an inspiration to patients out there that have suffered similar events. Can you remember or take me back to before I met you, when they told you you needed an amputation in the right leg? What did that feel like when those words were said?
It was very scary, very scary. I had numerous surgeries. I'd had shots in my back. They kept telling me for years that I had pinched nerve in my back because my leg hurt so bad. I couldn't walk. My foot was cold constantly and ached and throbbed all the time. And they kept telling me that it was a pinched nerve and lower extremity study. Come back and said that it wasn't a pinched nerve at all, that the arteries was all blocked in my leg. And so I went to a different doctor. I had to go to a different doctor for that. And they told me that I had the choice of either dealing with the pain for the rest of my life and eventually dying and having to take it, or to go ahead and take it now because I was in so much excruciating pain. And I opted, because I was in so much pain, to go ahead and do it. And like I said, they did the first one. It was BK. And then the second one, 2 weeks later, they had to go AK because there was still no blood flow there. And they said that, I had no other choice and had to keep an eye on this left one because it was damaged as well. And that's when I started seeing you, by the grace of God. And you done surgery on the left one right away and saved it. And then it's only been maybe a year ago at that you done the second surgery on it to save it again because it was dying as well again. So
share, if you can, I guess if you can go back to the time period before they told you needed the amputation, knowing what you know now, is there anything you could have done differently? And the reason I ask is because I think part of why we're doing this podcast is to raise awareness to patients and medical professionals as well, is that, amputation, at least in my opinion, should not be the first option. And I know that they had tried other, they tried to get you better blood flow through various procedures. But I mean, did you feel like you were kind of backed into a corner and didn't have any other options? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. I felt like I was backed into a corner and I didn't have any other options because that's what the doctors were telling me was, two different ones said, hey, there's no other choice. You've either got to live with the pain and live on pain medicine constantly, which wasn't helping, and or let them amputate in order to do away with the pain. And so, yes, I did feel like I was backed into a corner. But prior to having this done, like I said, I'd had aorta symptom bypass done 2 different times, and ended up, I had to have a CAT scan done. And when they put me on the CAT scan table, I was fine. And when I came out, I was laying in a pool of blood clear up the back of my head. My right groin had literally exploded, physically exploded. And I had to go into emergency surgery. And it just, one thing right after another. I come out of surgery. They told my husband I was out of surgery. My parents were there. I was out of surgery. Everything went okay. Well, the next thing we knew, he knew, he got a phone call telling him to get back upstairs. They were taking me back into emergency surgery. And I had started hemorrhaging out because my right groin area had exploded for the second time.
And this is after, this is after a procedure?
Yes, this was after I'd had aorta symptom bypass done, yes.
Okay.
And it was after that all came about. And then I come home with a double wound back and fought through all that and everything. And just, like I said, it's just gone from one thing right into another. It started out at 31 years old. I had my first heart attack. And that was on the 2nd of February. And on the 14th of February, I had the second heart attack and almost died from that one. And I was told that I had arteries then of an 80 to a 90-year-old. And they only gave me 3 to 5 years to live. And it's been it'll be 23 years, April 15th. So amazing. I beat their odds.
Yeah, you did.
Their odds.
Yep, you keep fighting. We've talked about this in the office. I mean, you are quite a fighter, and I think you can be an inspiration to patients. So once they did the amputation, and for those that don't know the nomenclature, and Kim was referring to a BK, which is a below the knee amputation, and then presumably they had some issues with the wound healing, so then they modified that to an AK, or above the knee. And that I think clearly, when the knee joint is not present, it makes it more difficult to ambulate. But you, if memory serves me, recovered from the above the knee amputation and got a prosthesis, correct?
Yes, I do have one. Yes.
So what motivated you to say, you know what? Okay, this really stinks. I lost my right leg, but I need to walk again. Take us through that process. My grandbabies. Like I said, I've got 13 grandchildren, and to not be able to do things with them, that devastated me because they're my everything. And I didn't
I wasn't willing to give that up. I wasn't willing to give that up and be, basically in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I wasn't ready for that. I have had some issues since then, and no, I cannot wear my prosthetic because I need to have another revised surgery on my stump right at the moment. But with other health issues going on, I've kind of brushed that under the rug trying to deal with the other issues first. So, I wasn't willing to give up, and, I didn't want to give that part of my life away. And I felt like that's what I was going to do. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to continue fighting. And that's what I've tried to do, is to continue to fight no matter what has been put on me. I'm not willing to just sit down and give up. I want to fight back with everything in me. The first thing I can say I would have done different had I known then what I know now. Mm-hmm. I would have never picked up the first cigarette in my life. And I am a smoker. I admit that. But I would have never picked up the first cigarette in my life had I known then what I know now. And I would have changed my eating habits. I don't eat horribly bad, but I don't eat the best either. So.
But I think clearly you were also dealt a genetic hand that wasn't favorable. The fact that you had already had, issues with coronary disease and obviously peripheral arterial disease, that does play genetics plays a large component. Back to the cigarettes. Yep. A lot of patients of mine smoke, and, I always joke with them, I've got a mallet in the office. I'm going to hit you over the head with the mallet to get you to stop smoking. But I mean, it truly is an addiction, correct? I mean, it's not as easy as just saying, okay, come on, Mrs. Smith, drop your cigarettes. Let's go. It's an addiction, right?
Yes, it is. Very much so. Very much so. Even today, everything I've been through, I don't know that it's I can't, I don't have the willpower. I don't know it's the addiction because I am addicted to them so bad, but I can't lay them down and walk away. It's almost like I feel like I have to have that cigarette in order to be able to function.
What would you say to a patient that's in your shoes right now and hopefully listening that has given up? I mean, you've never given up despite an amputation or revised amputation. But
don't give up, because I've always raised my children to believe that the good Lord won't put anything upon your shoulders you can't handle, and he won't close one door without opening the other. And I raised my children believing that and instilling that in them. So in return, I have to believe that myself. What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And I feel like that's what it's done. It's made me fight that much more because I'm not willing to give up, and you can't give up. You have to fight. Find something to fight for, and my story there is I lost my oldest son in a car accident 11 years ago. And I said, if I could survive that, I could survive anything. All I wanted to do was raise my kids. When I was diagnosed with heart disease, all I wanted to do was raise my kids. I got to raise my kids. Then I went to reaching out that I wanted to be able to see my first grandchild. I now have 13 grandchildren. Then I went from that to I would love to be able to see my oldest granddaughter graduate, because she is the daughter of my son who got killed in the car accident. That's my goal now. I want to see her be able to graduate. And that's what I fight for every day, is to see them kids and see them do the things that they do and to progress in life like they are. They've got a long life ahead of them. And that's what I try to tell them, do the best you can, but know that the good Lord won't put anything upon your shoulders you can't handle. You're strong.
I mean, obviously you could have easily have thrown the towel in 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And then the 5 years that you and I, or 5.5 years now that you and I have known each other. I mean, I always say to my patients, as long as you're willing to fight for the leg or your heart or your life, I'm going to fight with you. And clearly you are the epitome of that. Let me ask you this. If you could go back to before you had that amputation, knowing, again, in hindsight's 20/20, and it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. But would you say anything to your doctor at that time? Like, hey, is there anyone else that might be able to help me? I think the thing that we struggle with as somebody who treats patients with what you have is that a lot of times the patients don't know what's available. And sometimes not through any fault of their own or for their physician's fault, but they believe what their doctor tells them to be gospel. And because of that, if the doctor says you need an amputation, you need an amputation. And we're through something like this podcast and just raising awareness, we're trying to get a grassroots effort going and putting the patient as the quarterback and them dictating to some degree what happens to them. What would you say?
Yeah, because I was told, that there was nothing that they could do. And like I said, that my only option was to either live with the pain or to have it amputated. Well, I didn't know any different. And I went with the option of amputating because of the pain being so excruciatingly bad. Mm-hmm. And I wish to God I would have found you or a doctor like you before I let them amputate. I just took their word for it. And that's one step in my life there that, yes, I feel like now I can look back on and say I gave up. And I shouldn't have gave up. I should have looked further. But I was in so much pain, I just wanted the pain to go away. And I thought that was my only means of the pain going away was to let them amputate it like they said. And now I know different from that because of what I went through with my left leg. And like I said, you've done surgery on it 2 different times and saved it both times. And I still have it. I still have the feeling in my leg, everything. I can stand on it, the whole 9 yards. And I wished I could have found you or someone like you before I let them amputate and took just the word of them at that point in time in my life. Because I feel I would have still had my leg had I been able to find you or someone, that is willing to work as hard as what you have for me.
I think
feel
part
like
of the issue is,
had my leg.
But, I think we as the medical field kind of failed you as well. And that's the purpose of this podcast, awareness campaigns for peripheral arterial disease. And the goal of allowing you to tell your story is to motivate and provide hope to other patients who might be looking at a similar fate.
And that was the
case. Would you? Now would you press your doctor to say, if I told you, Kim, we're done with, I can't. There's nothing more that I could do in your leg. What would you say to me?
I would say to you, I know better because you've done it before. You've done it twice before for me, and I'm grateful for that. I tell you all the time, you're my hero because you have saved my leg on 2 different occasions.
And people are going to think I'm paying you for this.
No, not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form.
I know.
You've already paid me more than I can ever repay back, ever in this lifetime.
I appreciate that. We're really, again, I'm so happy that we can help you. Just a couple more questions. I know that this is hard for you, but I think it hopefully is kind of cathartic to be able to share this story. How do you deal with the day-to-day battle of what not only having the amputation, but on dialysis and trying to walk and the stigmas? And is it just the motivation to kind of, you have a goal and at one point it was to see one grandchild. Now you've got 13. Now it's a point to see one of them graduate. Is that how you kind of get your mind right?
That's how I get through my day. That's how I get through my day. I sit here and I have the picture of my son sitting right where I see it every day. And, same way, I just recently lost both of my parents within the last 2 years. And they were a big inspiration for me. My dad, which was my stepdad, he fought for me to push. He instilled that in me. And I look at those pictures and I think, they pushed me as well as my husband and my kids and my grandbabies. And that's what keeps me going. I'm not going to, I tell myself on a daily basis, you're not going to sit down and just give up and quit like they have told you to. A funny story. My husband was here. He could tell you. He come home here. It's been probably a year and a half ago. He come home, and I was standing in my wheelchair on one leg. Don't do this. It's not safe to do, I know. But I was standing on my leg in my wheelchair, changing curtains out in my living room. And he yelled at me for it. I said, somebody's got to do it. You work. Somebody's got to do it. And that's what keeps me going. I push myself no matter what it is. I try to do it, and I try not to ask for help. I try to do it on my own. And if I can't do it on my own, then I'm not above asking for help. And I want anybody that's listening to this to ask for help if they need help. But that's how I personally push myself every day, is I do the things, I push myself to do things that, some people might not push themselves to do. But that's what keeps me going, is pushing myself no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I think I'm assuming you know who Matthew McConaughey is, but he's an actor, and he just published a book called Green Lights, but basically it's some memoirs. And, his theory is life is full of green lights, yellow lights, and red lights. And, I guess ultimately it is a red light, but there are a lot of green lights that we got to keep persevering towards and moving through. And you seem to kind of be the epitome of that, because you could have hit a red light after that first amputation and, like I said, called it a day, but the light turned green, you keep going, you keep motivating yourself.
Don't give up, keep fighting.
That's what I was going to say. If there's kind of one thing that you could share with the listeners, with respect to what you went through, to give them hope, it sounds like don't give up, keep fighting, keep driving through the green lights, huh?
Yep, exactly. Because there's plenty of green lights out there. You just got to fight through the red lights to get there. Yep.
Kim, is there anything else you want to share with us? Something funny?
No, I mean,
all right, let's probably not funny. That's good. Well, I mean, again, you got a great attitude. You're an inspiration. Keep fighting. As long as you want to keep fighting, we're going to keep fighting for you. And probably don't stand on your single leg while changing curtains. That's some advice.
Hey, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. So it had to be done. And it looked nice when it was done. All my new curtains was up. So
that's awesome. Yep. That is fantastic. Yep. That is fantastic. Well, Kim, appreciate you telling your story. I hope that our listeners find it beneficial and find it inspirational, because I certainly did. I was in preparation for this. I was looking at the first angiogram that I did on your leg, and I remembered how blocked that artery was, and it took a fair amount of work, but it wasn't. We weren't moving mountains there, and it amazes me that, again, we got about 5 years out of it, and it was in July of 2020 where we had to do a little revision to it. But as long as you're still going to fight, I'm going to fight for you. And if we need to do some more work to it, we certainly can. But as it stands right now, I'm
going to continue to fight as long as the good Lord lets me continue to fight. Yep.
There you go. And I think it's important that we, focus on the present. Sometimes we dwell on the past, and sometimes we dwell too much on the future. And I think it's a great opportunity to stay focused and look to the now, as well as look into the future. So, Kim, we wish you the best of luck.
There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
You're exactly right. There's always a green light, I guess, right?
Yep.